his diet based on a principle, which is based on an ideology. He's more emotional rather than reasonable. And Dr. William T. Jarvis says, one can spot an ideological vegetarian by his exaggerations of the benefits of vegetarianism. And you could see that in the talk which preceded my talk. Exaggeration of benefits of vegetarianism and the lack of skepticism and the overlooking of the fact that extreme vegetarianism can lead to potential health risks. He says that the ideological vegetarian, he pretends to be like a scientist, but he's more like a lawyer than like a scientist. And you could see that in the talk by the learned speaker. More like a lawyer than like a scientist. They gather data and information selectively against the information which is against the ideology. This may be good for a debate like the one we are having, but not for engendering scientific understanding. Dr. William T. Jarvis says that ideological vegetarianism is filled with hypotheses. It is filled with extremism from which even scientists and doctors are not immune. And that you can see the quotation. Mr. Rushabh has said several diseases. And it's possible for me to refute each and every, but if time permits. He's talking about science, but the approach was not scientific. All can be prevented very well. Prevention is better than cure, is the base of the medicine, which time will not permit me to go into health reasons, etc. In the rebuttal, if time permits, I'll try and cover most of the other aspects. And health, I will try and cover in the rebuttal. Let's analyze the various reasons why a person chooses a food habit. It can be religious, it can be geographical location, it can be a personal choice, smell, taste, color, due to humane or ethical consideration, due to anatomical and physiological consideration, due to behavioral consideration. It can be due to ecological and economical consideration. It can be due to nutritional value or due to health and scientific reasons. Health and medical reasons. Let's first analyze the religious reasons. Mr. Trivedi said that religion should not interfere with the human beings where it's concerned what we should eat and what we should not eat. That we should leave it up to the doctors. I agree with him that in most of the religions, that is the case. The religious authorities, the main foundation, that's Almighty God, if he's not a doctor, the God that you worship is not a doctor, then you should not follow him. He says, leave it to the doctors. But in Islam, we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Almighty God, is our creator. And the creator of the human beings has far superior knowledge than all the doctors put together in all the years. And you can find the statements, as Mr. Ashmi has already said, all from doctors. He's quoting from these books, which I think is available for sale outside, all these books. I will touch on some of these points, all out of which many are fictitious. Fictitious don't exist at all. Some are irrelevant, some are untested, and some are truths which are half-baked truths. I would like to make one point crystal clear. That while I prove undoubtedly that non-veg food should be permitted for the human beings, I do not have the slightest intention to hurt the feelings of any vegetarians. And while I prove logically and scientifically that non-veg food is permitted, and if someone feels hurt, his sentiments are hurt, I apologize in advance. I sincerely apologize. My intention is not to hurt anybody's feeling, but I have to reply to the presentation of the earlier speaker. As far as Islam is concerned, it is not compulsory for a human being to have non-veg. A Muslim can be a very good Muslim even by being a pure vegetarian. But when our Creator, Almighty God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gives us permission to have non-veg, why should we not have it? And I started my talk by giving a quotation from the glorious Quran, from Surah Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 1, which says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, O you believe, awfu bil uqud, uhillat lakum bahimatul anam, illa ma yutla alaykum. Fulfill all your obligations, and lawful for you for food are all four-footed animals with the exceptions named. Quran further says in Surah Hell, chapter number 16, verse number 5, that cattle has been created by God for you. In it are various benefits. You derive warmth, and of the meat you can eat. The same message is repeated in Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23, verse 21, that you can have the meat of the cattle. Let's analyze the geographical reasons and the surrounding environment. And as we know, it influences a person's food habit. Like people living in the coastal region, the Kokanese, they have more fish. People living in South India, they have more rice. People living in the deserts, where there's scarcity of vegetation, people mainly survive on the flesh of animals. The Eskimo, the Arctic region, where there's scarcity of edible vegetation, they survive more on seafood. And Mr. Zaveri said that he knows that vegetable is not available in certain parts of the world, but today, due to advancement of transportation, we can supply them with vegetables. I would request the Indian Vegetarian Congress to supply, at least give the transportation cost, that's all, to supply to the Eskimos, to supply to Saudi Arabia. You get vegetables in Saudi Arabia, it is more expensive. Why? Because the cost of transportation. That makes it more expensive. It is illogical and unscientific to spend more money to buy a food which is less nutritious. Let's analyze the humane reasons, the ethical reasons, and the pure vegetarians. They say that all life is sacred and no living creature should be killed. They fail to realize that today it's a universal fact that even plants have got life. So the main argument on killing a living creature doesn't hold good today. Previously, maybe, a couple of centuries ago, it may have held some weight, but today it carries no weight. Then they further argue today and they say, yes, we know that plants have got life, but they can't feel pain. Therefore, killing a plant is a lesser crime and lesser sin as compared to killing an animal. Today, science has further advanced and we have come to know that even the plants can feel pain. They can even cry. But the cry of the plant cannot be heard by the human ear because the audible frequency range of the human ear is from 20 cycles per second to 20,000 cycles per second. Anything below and above this, the human ear can't hear. But the cry of the animal can be heard by the human beings, but the cry of the plant cannot be heard by the human beings. Just because you cannot hear the cry of the plant, that doesn't justify you to inflict pain or kill the plant. There was an ideological vegetarian who had a discussion with me and told me that, Brother Zakir, I know that plants have life, they feel pain, but plants, they have got about 2 senses less as